Hello, kids. Once upon a time, there was an old woman who was making her way to market with a jar of honey to sell. Now, as she was going through the forest, she tripped on the root of a tree and the honey spilt everywhere. Oh, it was terrible. She was so upset. And so she cried out to all the goddesses and all the gods. And then she got specific and said, Papa God, why is it that you bring so much misery into my life? And with that up, she got herself up and she went home. Now, who was watching from his branch but Monkey? Now, Monkey came down from the tree. He put his paw in the honey. He brought his paw up to his mouth, and the whole world changed. You know why? You know how good honey tastes. Monkey said this: misery tastes good. Misery tastes sweet. Misery tastes sticky. I love misery. So when he's finished eating it, he calls up to Papa God and he says, hey man, Papa God, could you bring a little bit more misery into my life, please? And Papa God says, son, that's a kind of unusual request. I don't get that every day. You're sure you know what you're asking for? And little Monkey, who's looking a little bit like you at this moment, puffs his chest up and he says, bring it. And so Papa God brings him down this little bag and he says, there's real monkey misery in the bag. Maybe you'll learn something. And so with great excitement, the monkey opens the bag, but 7 snarling dogs run out of the bag and run at him. Now, if there's one thing that monkeys don't like, it's being chased by dogs. And they chase him and they chase him and they chase Monkey until he's far out from the forest into a very hot place, a place it's almost like a desert. And the sun is beating down and little Monkey is so thirsty and the dogs are right behind him. And he had almost given up on hope when he saw up ahead, against all the odds, a fruit tree. And he could run up into the fruit tree where there was succulent fruit for him to eat. There was shelter from that beating sun. And most of all, there were long branches where he could do his beautiful, wonderful little victory dance of life to all the dogs that were below. Now, by the time the night had come around, the dogs had gone. They weren't interested anymore. And so he called up to Papa God and he said, I definitely prefer the first type of misery that you showed me. That was much more what I was hoping for. I don't know about this kind. And Papa God said this: well, you did ask. And I would also suggest to you, who was it that placed such a succulent fruit tree out in the desert when you most needed it? Because if there's one thing that I've learnt as Papa God, it's that too much misery is no good for anyone. I really care for that story. I like that story. It's a story from Haiti, and that is a culture that really understands what it means to dig in when times are tough. You should ask your family about them. And it's a story that I've been telling my little girl for many years now. It's not so little anymore. There's a lot of anxiety around at the moment, isn't there? You may have seen it in your family or your mums or dads. Remind them, if you can, of the fruit tree, because a lot of the older people will feel like the dogs are right behind them at the moment in the desert. But remind them of the fruit tree. Remind them of taking shelter. And when you feel lost or a bit afraid or you've got questions, do remember to go to your family and ask this: tell me a story. Tell me a story. because this is a moment where we really need to hear stories like this. Stories like this are built partially to eradicate unnecessary fear. And I don't want to see any unnecessary fear in you. None. So I say this to you: courage and lots of love.